Okay. All right? No. Okay. Good afternoon, beloveds. As promised, I am here. Okay, Dante just got... I thought I was going to get Dante to make a cameo for you, but maybe not. He's now on the floor. He was asleep on his window pillow when I came in. So here we are. I'm here to do the Emerson essay, compensation. We're doing compensation today. And then not next Saturday, but Saturday after that, I will do Self-Reliance. And then I will be done with the Emerson essays that Jesse is going to use for his class. This is the whole reason that I'm doing this. Okay, maybe not the whole reason. Let me think about this for a minute. Reverend Jesse in July of 2026, just in case you're watching this some other time, is going to do a class on Emerson essays, and he chose 5 Emerson essays. And I know that people don't have a lot of time, and I know that Emerson is hard to read. Been there, done that. And so, because I have friends who are dyslexic, and because I do have a mild form of dyslexia, mine just shows up in numbers. It doesn't impact my reading so much as my spelling. I thought, you know what? There are so many books out there that are just inaccessible because there are not audible versions of them because they are older books, with Emma Curtis Hopkins being an example of that. And I thought, okay, you know what? Here is a service that I can provide. And in doing this, I discovered that I was getting so much more out of the material by reading it out loud. And so I was like, okay. So when he told me that he was going to do this class, and Emerson and I have had our moment. I'm not the biggest fan of Emerson. I am learning to like Emerson. Do I think I will ever learn to love Emerson? I don't know. But I am learning to like Emerson. And part of this was back when I realized that this thing called You is one of my favorite Ernest Holmes books, and there's not an audible copy of it. And so I was like, well, then I'm going to provide that. And then when Jesse was reading when we did the book study on our Emma Curtis Hopkins Christian Science mental practice, somebody said, oh yeah, it's available on YouTube, but it's boring. And I was like, well, I can promise you that if I do it, it won't be boring. So here we are. So I am doing Emerson in an effort to, 1, get a little bit deeper of an understanding of Emerson myself. 2, the essays will be available audibly for that class. So if you don't have time to read the essay, but have time to listen, that it's available to you. And 3, just because it's the right thing to do. So here we are. We're doing compensation. We're doing Self-Reliance next week. I don't know why I've got Self-Reliance on the brain. Not next week, sorry. I won't be here next week. But the following week we will do it. And honestly, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Christian mysticism, High Mysticism by Emma Curtis Hopkins, and then I may come back and finish these Emerson essays on Saturdays. It gives me something to do on a Saturday afternoon when I literally nothing else to do. So that is what we are doing. So I keep showing the book. I know it's backwards. I don't know how to fix that. But so that you know which Emerson's essays I am doing. This is what the cover looks like, in case you want to follow along and read along with me. Because occasionally I do stop and highlight particularly good lines, or interesting lines, or if nothing else, things that I want to go back and think about. So we are doing Emerson's essay number 3, compensation. And mind you, I am reading Emerson because I'm about to say I'm a boy, and we both know that's not true. So, all right. Compensation. Ever since I was a boy, I have wished to write a discourse on compensation, for it seemed to me when very young that on this subject life was ahead of theology and people knew more than the preachers taught. The documents, too, from which the doctrine is to be drawn, charmed my fancy by their endless variety, and lay always before me, even in sleep, for they are the tools in our hands, the bread in our basket, the transactions of the street, the farm, and the dwelling house, the greetings, the relations, the debts and the credits, the influence of character, the nature and endowment of all people. It seemed to me also that in it might be shown people a ray of divinity. Hang on, that sentence doesn't make sense. It seemed to me also that in it might be shown people a ray of divinity. Okay, see, this is one of those lines that doesn't make sense. Okay. Although there is a comma, so there's more to the sentence. Let's just start it over again. This is where, when I'm doing the readings, here is where I'm going to look you straight in the eye and go, I don't know what he's talking about. Or if I have an idea, I might share it with you. But I'm going to be real with you. I don't know what he's talking about. It seemed to me also that in it might be shown people a ray of divinity, the present action of the soul of this world, clean from all vestige of tradition, and so the heart of humanity might be bathed by an indignation of eternal love, conveying with that which they know was always and always must be, because it really is now. I've read the whole sentence and still don't know what he's talking about. Let's keep going. It appeared, moreover, that if this doctrine could be stated in terms with any resemblance to those bright institutions in which this truth is sometimes revealed to us, it might be a star in many dark hours and crooked passages in our journey that would not suffer us to lose our way. Okay. That again, what he's wanting to do is set up something that when we hit a dark point or a low point or a wicked point, meaning we don't know which way we're going, this will be a guiding light. So, and Giovanni's playing with the ball track, so sorry about the noise. I was lately confirmed in these desires by hearing a sermon at church. The preacher, a person esteemed for their orthodoxy, unfolded in the ordinary manner the doctrine of the Last Judgment. They assumed that judgment is not executed in this world, that the wicked are successful, that the good are miserable, and then urged from reason and from Scripture a compensation to be made to both parties in the next life. No offense appeared to be taken by the congregation at this doctrine. As far as I could observe, when the meeting broke up, they separated without remark on the sermon. Yet, what was the import of this teaching? What did the preacher mean by saying that the good are miserable in the present life? Was it that houses and lands, offices, wine, horses, dress, luxury are had by unprincipled people, while the saints are poor and despised, and that a compensation is to be made to these last hereafter by giving them the like gratification another day? Bank stock and doubloons, venison and champagne. This must be the compensation intended for what else? Is it that they have had, that they are to have, hang on. Is it that they are to have leave to pray and praise, to love and serve people? Why that they can do now? The legitimate inference the disciple would draw was, we are to have such a good time as sinners have now, or to push it to its extreme import, you sin now, we shall sin by and by. We would sin now if we could. Not being successful, we expect our revenge tomorrow. He just laid bare an argument that I've thought about, but never voiced out loud. And it is definitely one of the things that I don't get about this world, and one of the things that made me very angry, specifically about the Middle Ages, where the church was teaching people who were poor and miserable to accept their lot because they would be rewarded in heaven. And I was not okay with it then. I'm still not okay with it now. And I just heard him make an argument, and hang on, because we're about to get to this, why that's a problem. Emerson and I agree about something, and I didn't, and I hadn't noticed. So hang on, because that's exactly it. That is definitely one of the problems that I have about this kind of Last Judgment teaching. Well, we would do it now, but we can't. But we are going to get our revenge. Yeah. Okay. So here's how he starts the next paragraph. The fallacy lay in the immense concession that the bad are successful, that justice is not done now. The fallacy lay. Whew. All right, Emerson, bring it. The blindness of the preacher consisted in deferring the base estimate of the market of what constitutes a manly success, instead of confronting and convicting the world from the truth, announcing the presence of the soul, the omnipotence of the will, and so establishing the standard of good and ill, of success and falsehood, of summoning the dead to its present tribunal. I find a similar base tone in the popular religious works of the day, and in the same doctrines assumed by the literary people when occasionally they treat the related topics. I think that our popular theory has gained in decorum and not in principle over the superstitions that it has displaced. What I just heard Emerson say is, you know what? Yeah, it may have taken over the previous superstitions, but it's not better. Which is where I remind you that Ernest said to not take away a person's God unless you can replace it with something better. Okay? All right, Emerson. I'm with you. But people are better than this theology. Their daily life gives it the lie. Every ingenious and aspiring soul leaves the doctrine behind them in their own experience, and all people feel sometimes the falsehood which they cannot demonstrate. Yep. For people are wiser than they know. That which they hear in schools and pulpits without afterthought, if said in conversation, would probably be questioned in silence. If a person dogmatized in a mixed company on providence and the divine laws, they are answered by a silence which conveys well enough to an observer the dissatisfaction of the hearer, but their incapacity to make their own statement. I shall attempt in this and the following chapter to record some facts which indicate the path of the law of compensation, happy beyond my expectation if I shall truly draw the smallest arc in this circle. And the next essay that he's referring to is Spiritual Laws, which I have already read. So feel free to go back and read it. He's kicking this one off. But I've had time to think about this since I first took this Emerson class. I actually had a lot of time to think about it. So this is very interesting to me. Okay. Polarity, or action and reaction, we meet in every part of nature. In darkness and in light, in heat and cold, in the ebb and flow of waters, in male and female, in the inspiration and expiration of plants and animals, in the systole and distole of the heart, in the undulations of fluids and of sound, in the centrifuge and centripetal gravity, in electricity, galvanism, and chemical affinity. Superindus magnetism at one end of the needle, the opposite magnetism takes place at the other end. If the south attracts, the north repels. To empty here, you must condense there. An inevitable dualism bisects nature so that each thing is a half and suggests another thing to make it whole, as spirit, matter, man, woman, subjective, objective, in, out, upper, under, motion, rest, yea, and nay, which I'm reminded of, and I think it's Alan Watts who talks about the continuum. Everything exists on a continuum. There's one extreme and the other, and then somewhere in the middle. That's what all of this is. And it appears to be that's what he's dancing on the edge of. We'll see if he actually gets there or if that's something that came a little bit later. Okay, back to Emerson. Whilst the world is thus dual, so is every one of its parts. The entire system of things gets represented in every particle, which then begs to mind the Rumi quote that the every drop is the ocean is every drop is the ocean, but every ocean is in the drop, but not every drop is. Oh, hang on, I just messed that quote up, but you know what I'm talking about, right? There is somewhat that resembles the ebb and flow of the sea, day and night, man and woman, in a single needle of the pine, in a kernel of corn, in each individual of every animal tribe. The reaction, so grand in the elements, is repeated within these small boundaries. For example, in the animal kingdom, the physiologist has observed that no creatures are favorites, but a certain compensation balances every gift and every defect. A surplusage given to one part is paid out in the reduction of another part of the same creature. If the head and neck are enlarged, the trunk and the extremities are cut short. The theory of the mechanic forces in another example. What we gain in power is lost in time, and the converse. The periodic or compensating errors of the planets is another instance. The influences of the climate and soil in political history are another. The cold climate invigorates, the barren soil does not breed fevers, crocodiles, tigers, or scorpions. What? Okay. That probably is coming from something and I don't know what it is. That's probably one of those, in his time it meant something and in mine it doesn't. So, curious now, right? The same dualism underlies the nature and conditions of humanity. Every excess causes a defect, every defect an excess. Every sweet hath its sour, every evil its good. Every faculty which is a receiver of pleasure is an equal penalty put on its abuse. It is to answer for its moderation with its life. For every grain of wit, there is a grain of folly. For everything you have missed, you have gained something else. And for everything you gain, you lose something else. If riches increased, they are increased that use them. If the gatherer gathers too much, nature takes out of the person what she puts into their chest, swells the estate, but kills the owner. Nature hates monopolies and exceptions. The waves of the sea do not more speedily seek a level from their loftiest tossing than the varieties of condition tend to equalize themselves. There is always some leveling circumstance that puts down the overbearing, the strong, the rich, the fortunate, substantially on the same ground with all others. Is a person too strong and fierce for society, and by temper and position a bad citizen? The morose ruffian with a dash of pirate in them. Nature sends them a troop of pretty sons and daughters who are getting along in the dame's classes at the village school, and love and fear for them soothes his grim scowl to courtesy. Thus she contrives to intenerate the granite and felspar, takes the boar out and puts the lamb in, and keeps her balance true. Interesting. The farmer imagines power and place are fine things, but the president has paid dear for their White House. It has commonly cost them all their peace and the best of their manly attributes. Okay, that's one of those things where if you go back and look at the presidents at the beginning of their term and then look at them at the end of their term, even if it's only 4 years, it's like they've aged 10 years. It's, woo, that's what he's talking about right there. And I would say that about most presidents, but yeah, I don't know right now. Okay, neither here nor there. To preserve for a short time so conspicuous an appearance before the world, they are content to eat dust before the real masters who stand erect behind the throne. Ooh. Or do people desire the more substantial and permanent grandeur of genius? Neither has this immunity. Neither has this an immunity. They who by force of will or of thought is great and overlooks thousands has the responsibility of overlooking. With every influx of light comes new danger. Have they light? They must bear witness to the light and always outrun that sympathy which gives them such keen satisfaction by their fidelity to new revelations of the incessant soul. They must hate father and mother, wife and child. Have they all that the world loves and admires and covets? They must cast behind them their admiration and afflict them by faithfulness to their truth and become a byword and a hissing. I have no idea what he's talking about. What? It sounds a little bit to me like he's talking about when you have a lot of something, then you're always worried about protecting it. I'm not sure that's what he's talking about, but that's what it sounds like. Because that is one of the things that ages people. When they have a whole lot of something and then they're constantly worried about losing it, whatever it is that they have a lot of, then that ages them faster. Whereas if you have enough, but not too much, and you're not worried about people stealing it from you, you see what I'm saying? That's what it sounds like. I'm not entirely sure though, because he got a little weird there. But we were talking about condensation. Okay, back to Emerson. This law writes the laws of the cities and nations. It will not be balked of its end in the smallest iota. It is in vain to build or plot or combine against it. Things refuse to be mismanaged long. Oh, great. Now he puts in a Latin phrase. Res non diu male administrari. Though no checks to a new evil appear, the checks exist and will appear. So even if it doesn't look like there are any checks and balances happening, they're coming. If the government is cruel, the governor's life is not safe. If you tax too high, the revenue will yield nothing. If you make the criminal code sanguinary, juries will not convict. Nothing arbitrary, nothing artificial can endure. The true life and satisfactions of humanity seem to elude the utmost rigors or felicities of condition, and to establish themselves with great indifferency under all varieties of circumstance. Under all governments, the influence of character remains the same. In Turkey and in New England, about alike. Under the primeval despots of Egypt, history honestly confesses that humanity must have been as free as the culture could make them. These appearances indicate the fact that the universe is represented in every one of its particles. The ocean in every drop, the drop. Okay. Everything in nature contains all the powers of nature. Okay. Everything in nature contains all the powers of nature. Everything is made of one hidden stuff. As the naturalist sees one type under every metamorphosis and regards a horse as a running person, a fish as a swimming person, a bird as a flying person, a tree as a rooted person, each new form repeats not only the main character of the type, but part for part all the details, all the aims, furtherances, hindrances, energies, and the whole system of every other. Every occupation, trade, art, transaction is a compend of the world and a correlative of every other. Each one is an entire emblem of human life, of its good and ill, its trials, its enemies, its course, and its end. And each one must somehow accommodate the whole person and recite all their destiny. The world globes itself in a drop of dew. The microscope cannot find the animalcule which is less perfect for being little. Eyes, ears, taste, smell, motion, resistance, appetite, and organs of reproduction that take hold on eternity all find room to consist in the small creature. So do we put our life into every act. The true doctrine of omnipresence is that God reappears with all its parts in every moss and cobweb. The value of the universe contrives to throw itself into every point. That bears repeating. The value of the universe contrives to throw itself into every point. If the good is there, so is the evil. If the affinity, so the repulsion. If the force, so the limitation. Thus is the universe alive. All things are moral. That soul which within us is a sentiment, outside of us is a law. We feel its inspirations. Out there in history, we can see its fatal strength. It is almighty. All nature feels its grasp. It is the world, and the world was made by it. It is eternal, but it enacts itself in time and space. Justice is not postponed. A perfect equity adjusts its balance in all parts of life. God bless him. This is Greek. Yep, nope, it's Greek. It is literally Greek. It is literally Greek. Right there. See? Greek. I cannot read Greek. The dice of God are always loaded. Okay. So, there's Greek. And then right after the Greek sentence, it says, the dice of God are always loaded. The world looks like a multiplication table or a mathematical equation, which, turn it how you will, balances itself. Take what figure you will, its exact value, no more nor less, still returns to you. Every secret is told, every crime is punished, every virtue rewarded, every wrong redressed, in silence and certainty. What we call retribution is universal necessity by which the whole appears whenever a part appears. What? Ooh. If you see smoke, there must be fire. If you see a hand or a limb, you know that the trunk to which it belongs is there behind. Every act rewards itself, or in other words, integrates itself in a twofold manner. First, in the thing or in the real nature, and secondly, in the circumstance or in apparent nature. People call the circumstance the retribution. The casual retribution is in the thing and is seen by the soul. The retribution in the circumstance is seen by the understanding. It is inseparable from the thing, but is often spread over a long time, and so does not become distinct until after many years. I think that's where they get the phrase karma is a bitch. The specific stripes may follow late after the offense, but they follow because they accompany it. Crime and punishment grow out of one stem. Punishment is the fruit that unsuspected ripens within the flower of the pleasure which conceals it. Cause and effect, means and ends, seed and fruit cannot be severed. For the effect already blooms in the cause. The end pre-exists the means, the fruit is in the seed. Wow. The fruit is in the seed. Whilst thus the world will be whole and refuses to be disparted, we seek to act partially, to sunder, to appropriate. For example, to gratify the senses, we sever all the pleasure of the senses from the needs of the character. The ingenuity of people has been dedicated to the solution of one problem: how to detach the sensual sweet, the sensual strong, the sensual bright, from the moral sweet, the moral deep, the moral fair. That is, again, to contrive to cut clean off this upper surface so thin as to leave it bottomless, to get a one end without the other end. The soul says, eat. The body would feast. The soul says, the man and woman shall be one flesh and one soul. The body would join the flesh only. The soul says, have dominion over all things to the ends of virtue. The body would have the power over things to its own end. The soul strives amain to live and work through all things. It would be the only fact. All things shall be added unto it, power, pleasure, knowledge, beauty. The particular person aims to be somebody, to set up for themselves, to truck and higgle for a private good, and in particulars to ride that they may ride, to dress that they may be dressed, to eat that they may eat, and to govern that they may be seen. People seek to be great. They would have offices, wealth, power, and fame. They think that to be great is to get only one side of nature, the sweet, without the other side, the bitter. Steadily is this dividing and detaching counteracted. Up to this day, it must be owned, no projector has had the smallest success. The parted water reunites behind our hand. Pleasure is taken out of pleasant things, profit out of profitable things, power out of strong things. The moment we seek to separate them from the whole, we can no more have things and get the sensual good by itself than we can get an inside that shall have no outside, or a light without window. Drive out nature with a fork, she comes running back. Life invests itself with inevitable conditions, which the unwise seek to dodge, which one and another brags that they do not know, brags that they do not touch them, but the brag is on their lips, the conditions are in their soul. If they escape them in one part, they attack them in another more vital part. If they have escaped them in a form and in the appearance, it is because they have resisted their life and fled from themselves. And the retribution is so much death. So signal is the failure of all attempts to make the separation of the good from the tax, that the experiment would not be tried, since to try it is to be mad, but for the circumstance that when the disease began in the will of rebellion and separation, the intellect is at once infected, so that the person ceases to see God whole in each object, but is able to see the sensual allurement of an object and not see the sensual hurt. They see the mermaid's head, but not the dragon's tail, and think that they can cut off that which they have from that which they would not have. How secret art thou who dwellest in the highest heavens in silence, O thou only great God, sprinkling with an unwearied providence certain pineal blindness upon such as have unbridled desires. Now there is a note here. I've not seen a note before in his essences, or in his essays before. So we are going to go find out what that note is. But I'm sorry, I just wanted to keep that, but they see the mermaid's head, but not the dragon's tail, because that's just an epic line. Okay, let's see what this note is. Oh, Well, that may take more looking than I was expecting. Okay, there's a note. Oh, it's at the bottom of the page. Okay, so the line that starts, how secret art thou who dwellest in the highest heaven, in silence, O thou only great God, sprinkling with an unwearied providence certain pineal blindness upon such as have unbridled desires, is from St. Augustine's Confessions. It was at the bottom of the page the whole time. I just didn't look. So he was telling you where, or somebody's telling you where that quote came from. Because it's a quote. It definitely had quotes around it. All right. Now that we know where that is, back to Emerson. The human soul is true to these facts in the painting of fable, of history, of law, of proverbs, of conversation. It finds a tongue in literature unawares. Thus, the Greek called Jupiter supreme mind, but having traditionally ascribed to him many base actions, they involuntarily made amends to reason by tying up the hands of so bad a god. He is made as helpless as a king of England. Prometheus knows one secret which Jove must bargain for. Minerva, Athena, the Roman name for Athena. Minerva, another. He cannot get his own thunders. Minerva keeps the key of them. Of all the gods, I only know the keys that ope the solid doors within whose vault his thunders sleep. Interesting. The goddess of wisdom keeps the thunder from Job. She's also the goddess of war, though, so, hey. A plain confession of the inworking of the all and its moral aim. The Indian mythology ends in the same ethics, and indeed it would seem impossible for any fable to be invented and get any currency which was not moral. Aurora forgot to ask youth for her lover, and though so Tithonius is immortal, he is old. Achilles is not quite invulnerable, for Thetis held him by the heel when she dipped him in the Styx, and the sacred waters did not wash that part. Siegfried in the Nibelung is not quite immortal, for a leaf fell on his back while he was bathing in the dragon's blood, and that spot which it covered is mortal. And so it is always. There is a crack in everything God has made. Always, it would seem, there is this vindictive circumstance stealing at unawares even into the wild posy in which the human fancy attempted to make bold holiday and to shake itself free of the old laws. This backstroke, this kick of the gun, certifying that the law is fatal, that in nature nothing can be given, all things are sold. This is that ancient doctrine of Nemesis, who keeps watch in the universe and lets no offense go unchastised. The Furies, they said, are attendants on justice. And if the sun in heaven should transgress his path, they would punish him. The poets related that stone walls and iron swords and leathern thongs had an occult sympathy with the wrongs of their owner, that the belt which Ajax gave Hector dragged the Trojan hero over the field at the wheels of the car of Achilles, and the sword which Hector gave Ajax was that on whose point Ajax fell. They recorded that when the Thessians erected a statue to Theogenes, a victor in the games, one of his rivals went to it at night and endeavored to throw it down by repeated blows until at last he moved it from its pedestal and was crushed to death beneath its fall. This voice of fable has in it somewhat divine. That was just a whole lot of, you never get something for nothing. It came from the thought above the will of the writer. That is the best part of each writer, which has nothing private in it. That it is the best part of each when they do not know that which flowed out of their constitution and not from their too active invention. That which in the study of a single artist you might not easily find, but in the study of many you might abstract as the spirit of them all. Phidias it is not, but the work of a person in the early Hellenistic world that I would know. The name and the circumstance of Phidias, however convenient for history, embarrasses when we come to the highest criticism. We are to see that which person was tending to do in which given period and was hindered, or, if you will, modified in doing by interfering violations of Phidias, of Dante, of Shakespeare, the organ whereby humanity at the moment wrought. Still more striking is the expression of this fact in the proverbs of all nations, which are always the literature of reason, or the statements of an absolute truth without qualification. Proverbs, like the sacred book of each nation, are the sanctuary of the institutions. That which is the droning world chained to appearances will not allow the realists to say in their own words. It will suffer them to say in Proverbs without contradiction. And this law of laws, which the pulpit, the Senate, and the college deny, is hourly preached in all markets and in all languages by flights of proverbs, whose teachings are as true and as omnipresent as that of the birds and flies. Okay. I'm going to go back and think about that one. Okay. All things are double, one against another, tit for tat, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, blood for blood, measure for measure, love for love. Give, and it shall be given to you. They that watereth shall be watered themselves. What will you have? Quoth God, pay for it and take it. Nothing venture, nothing have. Thou shalt be paid exactly for what thou hast done, no more, no less. Who does not work shall not eat. Harm watch, harm catch. Curses always recoil on the head of them who imprecates them. If you put a chain around the neck of a slave, the other end fastens itself to your own. Bad counsel confounds the adviser. The devil is an ass. It is thus written because it is thus in life. Our action is overmastered and characterized above our will by the law of nature. We aim at a petty end quite aside from the public good, but our act arranges itself by irresistible magnetism in a line with the poles of the world. A person cannot speak, but they judge themselves. With their will or against their will, they draw their portrait to the eye of their companions by every word. Every opinion reacts on them who utters it. It is a thread ball thrown at a mark, but the other end remains in the thrower's bag. Or rather, it is a harpoon thrown at the whale, unwinding as it flies. A coil of cord in the boat, and if the harpoon is not good or not well thrown, it will go nigh but to cut the steersman in twain, or to sink the boat. You cannot do wrong without suffering wrong. No person had ever a point of pride that was not injurious to them, said Burke. The exclusive in fashionable life does not see that they exclude themselves from enjoyment in the attempt to appropriate it. The exclusionist in religion does not see that they shut the door of heaven on themselves in striving to shut out others. Ooh. That's one of my beefs with religion, right there. Treat people as pawns and ninepins, and ye shall suffer. You shall suffer as well as they. If you leave out their heart, you shall lose your own. The senses would make things of all persons, of women, of children, of the poor. The vulgar proverb, I will get it from their purse or get it from their skin, is sound philosophy. All infractions of love and equity in our social relationships are speedily punished. They are punished by fear. Ooh. Whilst I stand in simple relations to my fellow people, I have no displeasure in meeting them. We meet as water meets water, or as two currents of air mix, with perfect diffusion and interpenetration of nature. But as soon as there is any departure from simplicity, and any attempt at halfness or good for me that is not good for them, my neighbor feels the wrong. They shrink from me as far as I have shrunk from them. Their eyes no longer seek mine. There is war between us. There is hate in them and fear in me. All the old abuses in society, the great and universal, and the petty and particular, all unjust accumulations of prosperity and power are avenged in the same manner. Fear is an instructor of great sagacity and a herald of all revolutions. One thing they always teach, that there is rottenness where they appear. Oh, okay, hang on. He's using he in as he's personifying fear. Let me go back. Fear is an instructor of great sagacity and a herald of all revolutions. One thing he always teaches is that there is rottenness when he appears. He is a carrion crow, and though you see not well that he hovers for, what he hovers for, there is death somewhere. Our property is timid, our laws are timid, our cultivated classes are timid. Fear for ages has boded and mowed and gibbered over government and property. That obscene bird is not there for nothing. Fear indicates great wrongs which must be revised. Ooh. Of the like nature is that expectation of change, which instantly follows the suspension of our voluntary activity. The terror of cloudless noon, the emerald of polycrates, the awe of prosperity, the instinct which leads every generous soul to impose on itself tasks of noble asceticism and vicarious virtue, are the tremblings of the balance of justice through the heart and mind of humanity. Experienced people of the world know very well that it is best to pay scot and lot as they go along, and that a person often pays dear for small frugality. The borrower runs in their own debt. Has a person gained anything who has received 100 favors and rendered none? Have they gained by borrowing through indolence or cunning their neighbor's wares or horses or money? There arises on the deed the instant acknowledgement of benefit on the one part and of debt on the other. that is of superiority and inferiority. A transaction remains in the memory of themselves and their neighbor, and every new transaction alters according to its nature their relationship to each other. They may soon come to see that they had better have broken their own bones than to have ridden in their neighbor's coach, and that the highest price they can pay for a thing is to ask for it. A wise person will extend this lesson to all parts of life and know that it is always the part of prudence to face every claimant and pay every just demand on your time, your talents, or your hearts. Always pay, for first or last, you must pay your entire debt. Persons and events may stand for a time between you and justice, but it is only a postponement. You must pay at last your own debt. If you are wise, you will dread a prosperity that only loads you with more. Benefit is the end of nature, but for every benefit which you receive, a tax is levied. They are great who confers the most benefits. They are base, that is the one base thing in the universe, to receive favors and render none. In the order of nature, we cannot render benefits to those from whom we receive them, or only seldom, but the benefits we receive must be rendered again, line for line, deed for deed, cent for cent to somebody. Beware of too much good staying in your hand. It will fast corrupt, and worms pay it away quickly in some sort. Interesting. Beware of too much good staying in your hand. What's the matter? Come here. You okay? Ooh, this is heavy material. And we still have a ways to go. Labor is watched over by the same pitiless laws. Cheapest, says the prudent, is the dearest labor. What we buy in a broom, a mat, a wagon, a knife, in some application of good sense to a common want, it is best to pay in your land a skilled gardener, or buy a good sense applied to gardening. In your sailor, good sense applied to navigation. In the house, good sense applied to cooking, sewing, serving. In your agent, good sense applied to accounts and affairs. So do you multiply your presence or spread yourself throughout your estate. But because of the dual constitutions of things, in labor as in life, there can be no cheating. Okay. Can be no cheating. Ooh. The thief steals from themselves. The swindler swindles from themselves. For the real price of labor is knowledge and virtue, whereof wealth and credits are signs. These signs, like paper money, may be counterfeited or stolen, but that which they represent, namely knowledge and virtue, cannot be counterfeited and stolen. These ends of labor cannot be answered but by real exertions of the mind and in obedience to pure motives. The cheat and the defaulter, the gambler, cannot escort the benefit, cannot escort the knowledge of material and moral nature, which their honest care and pains yield to the operative. The law of nature is, do the thing and ye shall have the power, but they who do not do the thing do not have the power. The law of nature. Okay. Human labor, through all its forms, from the sharpening of the stake to the construction of a city or an epic, is one immense illustration of the perfect compensation of the universe. Everywhere and always, this law is sublime. The absolute balance of give and take, the doctrine that everything has its price, and if that price is not paid, not that thing, but something else is obtained. And that it is impossible to get anything without its price is not less sublime in the column of the ledger than in the budgets of states, in the laws of light and darkness, in all the action and reaction of nature. I cannot doubt that the high laws of which each person sees ever implicated in those processes in which they are conversant, the stern ethics which sparkle on their chisel edge, which are measured out by their plumb and foot rule, which stand as manifest in the footing of the shop bill as in the history of a state, do recommend to them their trade, and though solemn named, exalt their business to their imagination. The league between virtue and nature engages all things to assume a hostile front to vice. Okay. The beautiful laws and substance of the world persecute and whip the traitor. They find that things are arranged for truth and benefit, but there is no den in the whole wide world to hide a rogue. Commit a crime, and the earth is made of glass. There is no such thing as concealment. Commit a crime, and it seems as if a coat of snow fell on the ground, such as reveals in the woods the track of every partridge and fox and squirrel and mole. You cannot recall the spoken word. You cannot wipe out the foot track. You cannot draw up the ladder so as to leave no inlet or clue. Always some damning circumstance transpires. The laws and the substance of nature, water, snow, wind, gravitation, become penalties to the thief. On the other hand, the law holds with equal sureness for all right action. Love, and you shall be loved. All love is mathematically just, as is the two sides of an algebraic equation. Oh, love, and ye shall be loved. The good person has absolute good, which like fire turns everything to its own nature, so that you cannot do them any harm. But as the royal army sent against Napoleon when he approached, cast down their colors, and from enemies became friends, so do disasters of all kinds, as sickness, offense, poverty, prove benefactors. Winds blow and waters roll, strength to the brave and power and deity, yet in themselves are nothing. Little piece of poetry. The good are befriended even by weakness and defect, as no person has ever made a point of pride that was not injurious to them, so no person has ever a defect that has not somewhat made useful to them. Okay. What? Okay. Pride injures defect that was not somewhat useful to them. The stag in the fable admired the... Okay, hang on. The stag in the fable admired his horns and blamed his feet. But when the hunter came, his feet saved him, and afterwards caught in the thicket, his horns destroyed him. Every person in their lifetime needs to thank their faults. As no person thoroughly understands a truth until first they have contended against it, so no person has thorough acquaintance with the hindrance or talents of people until they have suffered from one and seen the triumph of the other over their own want of the same. Have they a defect of temper that unfits them to live in society? Thereby they are driven to entertain themselves alone and acquire habits of self-help, and thus, like the wounded oyster, they mend their shell with pearl. Our strength grows out of our weakness, not until we are pricked and stung and sorely shot at, awakens the indignation which arms itself with secret forces. A great person is always willing to be little. Whilst they sit on the cushion of advantages, they go to sleep. While they are pushed and tormented, defeated, they have a chance to learn something. They have been put on their wits, on their personhood. They have gained facts, learned their ignorance, and are cured of the insanity of conceit, and got moderation and real skill. The wise person always throws themselves on the side of their assailant. The wise person always throws themselves on the side of their assailant. Okay. It is more their interest than it is theirs to find their weak point. The wound characterizes and falls off from them like dead skin, and when they would triumph, lo, they have the person has passed on invulnerable. Blame is safer than praise. I hate to be the defender in a newspaper. I hate to be the defended in the newspaper. As long as all that is said against me, I feel a certain assurance of success. But as soon as honeyed words of praise are spoken for me, I feel as one that lies unprotected before their enemies. In general, every evil to which we do not succumb is a benefactor. As the Sandwich Islander believes that the strength and valor of the enemy they kill pass into themselves, so we gain the strength of the temptation we resist. Okay. The same guards which protect us from disaster, defect, and enmity defend us, if we will, from selfishness and fraud. Bolts and bars are not the best of our institutions, nor is shrewdness in trade a mark of wisdom. People suffer all their life long under the foolish superstition that they can be cheated. But it is impossible for a person to be cheated by anyone but themselves, for as for a thing to be and not to be at the same time. There is a third, a silent party to all our bargains. The nature and soul of things takes on itself the guarantee of the fulfillment of every contract, so that honest service cannot come to loss. If you serve an ungrateful master, serve them the more. Put God in your debt. Every stroke shall be repaid. The longer the payment is withholden, the better for you. For compound interest on compound interest is the rate and usage of this executor. The history of persecution is a history of endeavors to cheat nature, to make water run uphill, to twist a rope of sand. It makes no difference whether the actors may be many or one, a tyrant or a mob. A mob is a society of bodies voluntarily bereaving themselves of reason and traversing its work. The mob is humanity voluntarily descending to the nature of the beast. Its fit hour of activity is night. Its actions are insane, like its whole constitution. It persecutes a principle. It would whip a right. It would tar and feather justice by inflicting fire and outrage upon the houses and persons of those who have these. It resembles the prank of boys who run with fire engines to put out the ruddy aurora streaming to the stars. The inviolate spirit turns their spite against the wrongdoers. The martyr cannot be dishonored. Every lash inflicted is a tongue of fame, every prison a more illustrious abode, every burned book or house enlightens the world, every suppressed or expunged word reverberates through the earth from side to side. The minds of humanity are at last aroused. The reason looks out and justifies her own, and malice finds all her work in vain. It is the whipper who is whipped and the tyrant who is undone. Thus do all things preach the indifferency of circumstances. The person is all. Everything has two sides, a good and an evil. Every advantage has its tax. I learned to be content. But the doctrine of compensation is not the doctrine of indifferency. The thoughtless say on hearing these representation, what boots it to do well? There is one event to good and evil. If I gain any good, I must pay for it. If I lose any good, I gain some other. All actions are indifferent. There is a deeper fact in the soul than compensation, to wit, its own nature. The soul is not compensation, but a life. Okay, the soul is not a compensation, but a life. The soul is. Under all this running sea of circumstance, whose waters ebb and flow with perfect balance, lies the aboriginal abyss of real being. Existence, or God, is not a relation or a part, but the whole. Being is the vast affirmative, excluding negative, self-balanced, and swallowing up all relations, parts, and times within itself. Nature, truth, virtue are the influx from thence. Vice is the absence or departure of the same. Nothing. Falsehood may indeed stand in as the great night or shade on which, as a background, the living universe paints itself forth. But no fact is begotten by it. It cannot work, for it is not. It cannot work any good. It cannot work any harm. It is harm inasmuch as it is worse not to be than to be. We feel defrauded by the retribution due to evil acts, because the criminal adheres to their vice and contumacy, and does not come to a crisis or judgment elsewhere in visible nature. There is no stunning confrontation of their nonsense before people and angels. Have they therefore outwitted the law? Inasmuch as they carries the malignancy and the lie with them, they have so far deceases from nature. In some manner there will be a demonstration of the wrong to the understanding also. But should we not see it, this deadly deduction makes square the eternal account. Neither can it be said, on the other hand, that the gain of rectitude must be bought by any loss. There is no penalty to virtue, no penalty to wisdom. They are proper additions of being. In a virtuous action, I properly am. In a virtuous act, I add to the world. I plant into deserts conquered from chaos and nothing, and see the darkness receding over the limits of the horizon. There can be no excess to love, none to knowledge, none to beauty. When these attributes are considered in the purest sense, the soul refuses all limits. It affirms in people always an optimism, never a pessimism. Their life is a progress and not a station. Their instinct is trust. Our instinct uses more and less in application to humanity, always in the presence of the soul and not of its absence. The brave person is greater than the coward. The true, the benevolent, the wise is more a person and not less than the fool and the knave. There is therefore no tax on the good of virtue, for that is the incoming of God itself, or absolute existence without any comparative. All external good has its tax, and if it comes without desert or sweat, has no root in me, and the next wind will blow it away. But all the good of nature is the soul's, and may be had, if paid for in nature's lawful coin. That is by labor which the heart and the head allow. I no longer wish to meet good I do not earn. For example, to find a pot of buried gold, knowing that it brings with it new responsibility. I do not wish more external goods, neither possessions, nor honors, nor powers, nor persons. The gain is apparent, the tax is certain, but there is no tax on the knowledge that the compensation exists, and that it is not desirable to dig up treasure. Herein I rejoice with serene eternal peace. I contract the boundaries of possible mischief. I learn the wisdom of Saint Bernard. Nothing can work me damage except myself. The harm that I sustain I carry about with me, and never am a real sufferer but by my own fault. In the nature of the soul is the compensation for the inequalities of condition. The radical tragedy of nature seems to be the distinction of more and less. How can less not feel the pain? How not feel indignation or malevolence towards more? Look at those who have less faculty and who feel sad, and one feels sad and knows not well what to make of it. Almost they shun their eye. They fear they will upbraid God. What should they do? It seems a great injustice. But see the facts nearly, and these mountainous inequalities vanish. Love reduces them as the sun melts the iceberg in the sea. The heart and soul of all people being one, this bitterness of theirs and mine ceases. They are mine. I am my sibling, and my sibling is me. If I feel overshadowed and outdone by great neighbors, I can get love. I can still receive, and they that loveth maketh their own grandeur they love. Thereby I make the discovery that my sibling is my guardian, acting for me with the friendliest designs, and the estate I so admired and envied is my own. It is the eternal nature of the soul to appropriate and make all things its own. Jesus and Shakespeare are fragments of the soul, and by love I conquer and incorporate them in my own conscious domain. His virtue, is not that mine? His wit, if it cannot be made mine, it is not wit. Such also is the natural history of calamity. The changes which break up at short intervals the prosperity of people are advertisements of a nature whose law is growth. Evermore it is the order of nature to grow, and every soul is by this intrinsic necessity quitting its whole system of things, its friends and home and laws and faith, as the shellfish crawls out of its beautiful but stony case, because it no longer admits of its growth and slowly forms a new house. In proportion to the vigor of the individual, these revolutions are frequent, until in some happier mind they are incessant, and all worldly relations hang very loosely about them, becoming as it were a transparent fluid membrane through which the living form is always seen, and not, as in most people, an indurated heterogeneous fabric of many dates and of no settled character, in which the person is imprisoned. Then there can be enlargement, and the person of today scarcely recognizes the person of yesterday. And such should be the outward biography of people in time, a putting off of dead circumstances day by day, as they renew their raiment day by day. But to us, in our lapsed estate, resting, not advancing, resisting, not cooperating with the divine expansion, this growth comes by shocks. We cannot part with our friends. We cannot let our angels go. We do not see that they only go out, that archangels may come in. We are idolaters of the old. We do not believe in the riches of the soul, in its proper eternity and omnipresence. We do not believe that in any force in today to rival or recreate that beautiful yesterday. We linger in the ruins of old tents, where once we had bread and shelter and organs, nor believe in that the Spirit can feed, cover, and nerve us again. We cannot again find aught so dear, so sweet, so graceful, but we sit and weep in vain. The voice of the Almighty saith, upward and onward forevermore. We cannot stay amid the ruins, neither will we rely on the new, so we walk ever with the reverted eyes like those monsters who look backwards. And yet the compensation of calamity are made apparent to the understanding also. After long intervals of time, a fever, a mutilation, a cruel disappointment, a loss of wealth, a loss of friends, seems at the moment unpaid loss and unpayable. But the sure years reveal the deep remedial forces that underlie all facts. The death of a dear friend, wife, brother, lover, which seemed nothing but privation, somewhat later assumes the aspect of a guide or genius, for it commonly operates revolutions in our way of life, terminates an epoch of infancy or of youth, which was waiting to be closed, breaks up a wonted occupation or a household or style of living, and allows the formation of new ones more friendly to the growth of character. It permits or constrains the formation of new acquaintances and the reception of new influences that prove of the first importance to the next year. And the person who would have remained a sunny garden flower with no room for its roots and too much sunshine for its head, by the falling of the walls and the neglect of the gardener, is made the banyan of the forest, yielding shade and fruit to the wide neighborhoods of humanity. And that was a weird ending. Other than I did appreciate him saying that we sit among the ruined tents and wail or cry, whatever it was that he said. It is our unwillingness to move forward, our unwillingness to grow. That is the problem there. So, but that was it. So I have one more essay. Which is Self-Reliance. Which I will do in a couple of weeks. Because I'm not going to be available this coming Saturday to do it. And then I will be done with the Emerson essays for a while. But I may come back and do the rest of the essays because I'm in a different place and they hit differently. So hopefully they have been as beneficial for you as they have been for me. Again, that was Compensation by Ralph Waldo Emerson, as in the Emerson essays. So the class is going to be taught in the middle of the day, so I won't be available for the class, but I look forward to hearing how it goes. All right, beloveds. Reverend David should be on eventually, and because I'm cutting into his time right now, so I need to get off this. And I'll see you tomorrow around 8:45 for A New Design for Living. All right.